Got a lot of prayer requests to go over. And I want to read off something. This is from, oh goodness, okay. Let me, y'all go over some prayer requests real quick, and I need to find something I need to read off to you guys about Ronnie. And make sure, Sadie, keep her in your prayers. Also, Lucy's mom and dad, keep them in your prayers. Harold, how's your mom doing?
She's doing better. She's home. She's getting her strength back.
Okay.
Hopefully we'll get good news in the next few days.
Okay. And that will be the results of everything. Okay. Also, Ross that comes, he's in the hospital at Boaz, going to be out there a couple of days, injured his arm, so I went by and checked on him today, so y'all remember him. Also, Brother Ed, continue to remember Brother Ed. He's not doing well, and they're trying to get him in over at hospice. No visitors at all. Please, no visitors at all. So y'all keep him in your prayers. Also, Miss Glenda, Scott just tried to call me, so when we're singing, I'll go back there and call Scott, see if he's got any more info. But she had surgery today, and also Dana, talked to her yesterday. She's doing better. She went to the doctor, got some good results, but it's going to be kind of a long road for her, so y'all make sure to keep her in your prayers also. Is there anybody else maybe that I'm forgetting? Sally, she had knee surgery yesterday, so remember her. Is there anybody else that we need maybe to remember? Alan, I haven't asked lately, how's your mom doing?
She's doing okay.
Okay.
She's doing as good as she can do.
All right, I'll call your dad tomorrow. Okay, I'll call him tomorrow. Anybody else? Huh? Yes, I mentioned Dana. You was talking to freaking frack back there. So, anybody else? I'm going to have to sit a teacher there, back there with y'all. Miss Bright, if you don't mind, you don't sit back there with them. This is an update on Ronnie, and I asked if I could read this, and they said I could. Friday, he's going to have 9 teeth extracted under general anesthesia, with 3 implants and bone grafts. Tuesday, he's going to see an oncologist to see about chemo, and within 6 days of the teeth surgery, he's going to have a CT for radiation treatment, and then the actual radiation therapy will begin about 2 weeks, and then he's going to be staying in Birmingham Sunday through Friday. They're going to come home after Friday radiation and go back on Sundays, and this will be for 7 weeks. And they're hoping that they can just get a room down there if housing is going to be available. And so make sure to keep him in your prayers. So a lot going on with him. Also, Brother Jerry, continue to keep him in your prayers. Also, we have a lot of people that are sick, waiting on test results, either in the hospital. So y'all just make sure to keep all these people in your prayers. Anything else that maybe I don't know about? Gail, I haven't asked in a while. How is son-in-law? Doing good? Good. Anyone else? All right, ready?
You'll stand with us, page 448.
Scott says Mom got a great places. I just have something about doors being open behind me. So, Scott said his mom got a great report. They were going there to biopsy a spot on the liver, and they cannot find it. So, said that they removed a kidney stone. She's doing great. So, praise report there. And so y'all just keep them in your prayers. Also, don't forget about the, failed to mention, the Operation Christmas Child. Do you want to say anything about that?
Just thank y'all for the collection and stuff y'all already brought in. We'll have something new starting the next month.
Okay. Tomorrow night, we start back our Thursday night Bible study. And if you've not ever been, this is a great time to start. We're not here 30 minutes, 40 minutes. What we have done is we've went all the way through the Old Testament, and it's taken us a while. And what we'll start on the New Testament tomorrow night. And basically what we do is we just take a book of the Bible or books of the Bible and kind of give you the general information on that, who wrote it, when it was wrote, a little bit of history about it, some themes, points of interest in it, and then we move on to the next book. And the reason we do it like that, if you do a Bible study at your home, you can kind of get a crib sheet about what that book is about instead of having to really delve into it. So we're going to be starting with Matthew, and hopefully we're going to try to knock out the 4 Gospels tomorrow night. And they're going to be meeting in here at 5:30, and we're not here long, and it is extremely, extremely casual. So ball caps, shorts, T-shirts, anything, you come, you're very welcome. We're going to be starting now in Genesis. We are starting a new study. The Wednesday night was a week ago, 2 weeks ago. I gave you guys a kind of detailed outline of what we're going to be going over, or an introduction. We're going to be looking at the life of Joseph, and his life is extremely interesting. It starts in Genesis chapter 37, but then it will skip chapter 38. We will not be going over chapter 38 because it is kind of like chapter 34. It's kind of, I don't really want to go into it in public, so to speak. But it skips chapter 38, and his life runs all the way through chapter 50. So from chapter 37, skipping 38, from chapter 39 all the way through chapter 50 of Genesis focuses on one individual, and it's Joseph. And this is one of the few, besides Joseph, David, and probably Solomon are the ones that, besides your prophets. Now, when I'm talking about prophets, your major prophets, Jeremiah, Elisha, Elijah, people like that. I'm not talking about prophets, major or minor prophets, just as individuals as far as patriarchs goes. Joseph is going to be giving us great detail about his life, and what the story of Joseph is about is, and it can be found starting in chapter 39 with 3 verses, and we'll look at that later. And what we did was we gave you a lot of information last time, and if you were not here and you want some of that information, I can probably fix you up a cheat sheet or something. The copy machine downstairs, it used to be able to make copies from my phone, but something's kind of wrong with that, so I'll have to give it to you. But looking at, first of all, quickly, very quickly, Joseph's father is obviously Jacob. He had a twin brother by the name of Esau. Mother and father is Isaac and Rebekah. And I know you've heard of all of these people's names. And what the book of Genesis is about is a book of genealogy, and it's the book of first. The book of Genesis records the first sin, the first murder, the first marriage, the first of everything can be found in the book of Genesis. And as you remember, Jacob has 2 wives, 2 handmaids. He's going to have Leah, and he's going to have Rachel, Bilhah, and then he's going to have Zilpah. And those 4 ladies are going to be responsible for the 12 tribes of Israel. So when you start looking at the 12 tribes of Israel, and with this study, and what I like about studying the book of Genesis, you do not have to strictly stay with just one individual in the book of Genesis. When you start studying Isaac, then you can start studying his genealogy, and you can stay in the book of Genesis for the next 20 years and never really even scratch the surface because there's so much in this book. But you remember you have those 4 individuals. They are responsible for the 12 tribes of Israel. And you will find out their names and who they gave birth to, so to speak, in chapter 35, starting in verses 23 through verses 26. And that will give you who the mom is and who their children are. And there is one daughter to the group, and she is the daughter of Leah. Her name is Dinah. And you have a story about her back in chapter 34. And it kind of gives you an overlay of the type of people we're dealing with. This is a very dysfunctional family. And we talked about this last time. Everybody has that cousin or that uncle or that sibling or somebody that's just like you don't even know if you're really related to them or not. And it's a very dysfunctional, this is a very dysfunctional family, extremely dysfunctional. And it goes to show you how God can take individuals who are extremely flawed in their personal life, their family life, even today in their Christian life, and how he can use these individuals for his kingdom and for his purpose. And when we start thinking about people like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, we often put them in a category of these people who are sinless, who are perfect, who do no wrong, but they were completely opposite of that, even just like with the disciples. And as we go through the life of Joseph, and he's going to be connected with all of his brothers and obviously his father, you're going to see, and you're going to look at Joseph's life and think, how in the world did he come out of that situation into the situation that he later passed away in, which was being, I think he is the second in charge of Egypt. And just quickly to kind of give you something that I thought was interesting. Back in chapter 34, we're not going to go into that chapter, but back in chapter 34, when Levi and Simeon, his 2 brothers, are the ones that slaughter the town or the village of Shechem. They are the sons of Leah. And I don't know if we talked about this or not, but how they come to slaughter them is extraordinary. But they slaughter every man and boy in that village. They slaughtered the king, they slaughtered his son, and the only people that are left is going to be the children and then the women. And we sometimes, when we read these stories, we look at these verses and we really don't think too much about them. But these verses are going to connect the way Jacob is and the way Joseph is going to be in his sons. If you look with me in chapter 34, starting in 28, running all the way through 31. And this story really sets up, and you see the type of brothers that Joseph is going to be dealing with. After Simeon and after Levi slaughter this village. And I went back and looked to try to figure out what the population of that village was. And as you remember, when they would take a census in the Old Testament, they never counted women. It was always men. And they're thinking around maybe 1,500 to 2,000 men lived in that village. So they went in and slaughtered, let's just even it up as 1,500 men, slaughtered them. But then it tells us they took their ox and their donkeys and their sheep and anything that was in the city that was valuable, anything in the field that was valuable. And look in verses 29. The city apparently of Shechem was extremely wealthy. It was a wealthy city. And what they did in verses 29, all of the wealth, all of their children, and their wives, they took captive. Who took them captive? Simeon and Levi, and also Jacob, and the rest of and everyone else. So when we look at this, we think that when you see this story about Jacob and Joseph and his brothers, we think of it as being Jacob, and then the 12 boys, and then Dinah, and that's all we think they are. But you have to keep in mind, these individuals, starting in verses 29, they take captives with them. And we'll find out about a little bit more about them starting in chapter 35. So they take them captive, and then Jacob scolds them, so to speak, in verses 30. And then starting in chapter 35, we find out when Jacob is going to meet, it says in chapter 35, verses 1. God says to Jacob, "Arise, go up to Bethel and dwell there, and make there an altar unto God that appeared unto thee when thou filledest with the face of Esau thy brother." Then Jacob said unto his household, okay, you've got Jacob, his 4 wives, and then his 12 sons, and then his daughter. Keep that in mind. He is going to say to his household and to all that were with him. Who are the all that were with him? If you go back to chapter 34, starting in verses 29, it is the captives that he's brought. These people that he has brought into his family are idol worshipers. So already Jacob has brought people into his family, into his life, that is going to turn his sons even further away from God. And it says, "And Jacob said unto his household," who would be his 4 wives, his sons and their daughter, and then to the household, "Put away the strange gods that are among you, be clean and change your garments." That is 2 times he says this. He says this twice. He says this before he goes and meets Esau, and then he says it again here in chapter 35. So you see the type of people we're dealing with. He is bringing these captives with him. So by the time you get to chapter 37, it really starts with the life of Joseph. It's going to be about 2 years. So starting in chapter 35, running through the first part of chapter 37, 2 years are going to pass. Now, we don't know how many of the captives he still has with him when we get to chapter 37, but starting in chapter 35, we do know that they are with him. So starting in chapter 37, that's where we're going to pick up at. All right. Jacob, his name is going to be also Israel. And if you want to find out how the nation of Israel got their name, you go back and you find out that it was given to Jacob by the angel or by God. And I want you to take your Bibles and go to chapter 39. I know I'm telling you to flip back and forth a lot, but I'm trying to build this foundation for you guys. In chapter 39, this is what the life of Joseph is essentially about in 3 verses. Okay? And if you are a child of God, if you're a Christian, these verses also apply to you. All right? And it says in verses 39, chapter 39, verses 2. And it says, "And the Lord was with Joseph." And then if you go to verses 21, it says, but the Lord was with Joseph. And if you go to verses 23, it says, because the Lord was with who? Him, or Joseph. So 3 times in a chapter we are told the reason that Joseph is in the positions that he is going to be in is because God is going to be with him. And I know sometimes in our lives when we got people in our church that's, waiting on tests and that are fixing to go into surgeries and things like that. And when you're in that area of your life, when things in your life may not be going in the direction that you would like for them to go, whether it be health, finance, family, job, whatever. You sometimes, and we're just human, you sometimes question if God is really there with you. Now, if you're one of these, it's like, I've never questioned him. I know he's wonderful, great. But there's been times in my life, and more than likely there's been times in somebody else's life here at the church, that you probably think, okay, God, where are you at? What are you doing? Do you know what you're doing? Do I need to come up there and kind of direct your path on what I need to do? And we do that because we are human. And his disciples were like that. The Old Testament prophets were like this. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. You remember when things got tough for Abraham, what did he do? He did not turn to God. He runs down to Egypt. So there's going to be times in our lives, and it's easy to trust God. And I've experienced this, and you've probably experienced it. It's easy to trust God in your life when everything is going great, isn't it? It's very easy. It's actually easy to pray when things are going great in your life. But when things start happening in your life, and it seems like, here at our church over the last few months, we've had, some sickness and things like that. And we as a church should, bound together even more with each other and with our prayer life and with our study life. But with Joseph, and this is something that I've always found interesting about Joseph, and we're going to go through this. Everything that is happening, that is going to happen in his life, he deserves none of it. Being sold into slavery, being lied to his father about being dead, being cast into prison, being hated by his brothers. Joseph deserved none of this, absolutely none of it. And what is also fascinating to me about this is that when all of this happens in his life, he is only 17 years old, 17. And so he is going to start his life out. They believe he was 15 years old when his mom passed away. So we have those 2 years. So now he's 17 years old in chapter 37. So you're looking at this, and this kid is a teenager. And he's only 17 years old, and he is fixing to, the next several years of his life, live a life that for probably 90% of people that would go through this, they would give up. But there's one thing about Joseph I want you to understand. He never questions God. Not one time. And we find this out later in his life when he is talking with his brothers, when he finally tells his brothers, I'm Joseph. When he tells his brothers that God essentially put me through everything and allowed you guys to put me through everything so I could be in this position now to take care of you guys. So Joseph never questions God. And there's another interesting thing about Joseph, but I'm sure he did, but we don't know, we don't have any recorded. You never heard Joseph pray. Never. He never builds an altar. And you have to keep in mind, though, this is way before the law was handed down in the book of Exodus. But with Joseph and with his testimony at the end of his life, we do realize that he trusted everything in his life with God. And people seen him, Potiphar, for example, people seen a work or something special in this individual's life that set him apart from everyone else. Now, you'll notice that God does not take any of his brothers and use them the way he uses Joseph. It's just Joseph. Now, again, they are the heads of the 12 tribes of Israel. They are. We cannot take that away from them. So, starting in chapter 37. Okay? And I'll have some notes for you guys. I had them on my phone, but when I tried to print off tonight, it wouldn't print off, so I'll have them for you next week. In chapter 37, it says, "And Jacob dwelled in the land wherein his father was a stranger." And that starts all the way back in Genesis chapter 12, when God tells Abraham, get out of your country. Leave your country, leave your friends. Only take the family that is closest to you, and I'm going to show you a land that's going to be yours. But you're going to be a stranger in a strange country. And he is going to be a stranger in this. And he is actually living in the land of Canaan, which is, i.e., Israel. That's where he's living at. So this is before Egypt. This is before Moses. This is going to be before the law. This is going to be before Moses leads the children of Israel out of Egypt. As a matter of fact, the children of Israel are not even a term yet. The only Israelites that we know about before they are given the name Israelites are going to be found here in chapter 37. So when you get to chapter 37, this is all before Pharaoh, everything. So we're going to find out how the children of Israel wound up in the land of Egypt. And how the children of Israel, when they got to the land of Egypt, or Jacob and his sons, there were only 70 of those. But by the time you get to the book of Exodus, that big time gap in between Genesis and Exodus, they are going to grow into a couple of million people. So there is a large time gap between Genesis and Exodus, so that growth can happen. So it tells us that Jacob was in the land where his father, which would be Isaac, and also which would be Abraham. So when the Old Testament writers would say father, they are not necessarily meaning his father. That would either be his father or his grandfather or his great-grandfather. And it says he is actually living in the land of Canaan. Okay. These are the generations of Jacob, also Israel. And we talked about this last time, that every now and again, Jacob is going to be referred to in the book of Genesis by Israel, and sometimes he's going to be referred to by Jacob. Now, we don't need to put too much into that. The writer sometimes will just use Jacob, and sometimes will just use Israel. And it says, and these are the generations of Jacob, Joseph being 17 years old, 17. Now, they are living in a different life, a different land, under different laws, under different traditions, under different everything. These people are sheep herders. There's no fences. Wherever the sheep go, they follow them. So he is feeding his flock with his brethren, and I'm going to kind of go slow in this if you want to write these people's names down. And he is going to be with the sons of Belha, and then the sons of Zelphar. Again, these are the handmaids, all right? Zelphar and Belha are going to be the handmaids of Rachel and Leah. And they have 4 sons in between them. So he is going to be with Dan. He is going to be with his stepbrother Naphtali. And the word Dan actually means troop. It means violent. Naphtali means essentially confusion. And what's funny about these guys' names, none of them have really religious names. But then you have an individual by the name of Gad and Asher. So he's with his 4 stepbrothers. He's going to be with Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. And Joseph brought unto his father their evil report. We don't know what they done. We could only imagine. If you go back to chapter 34, I believe, chapter 34? Yeah, chapter 34, we could probably imagine what they had done. But we see now Joseph is not, he's one of those brothers that was a tattletale. And he's probably one of those kids. He did have his faults. He's probably one of those kids that was always telling on his brothers. All right? And it says, and he brought unto his father their evil report. We don't know what they done. So now starting in verses 3, Now you'll notice how the writer is going to not call Jacob Jacob. Who is he going to refer him to? He's going to refer as Israel. So he's going to jump back and forth between Jacob and Israel. Now Israel loved Joseph, and I have got a chart on my phone I'll print out for you guys next week. And I think there's between 25 and 30 maybe similarities between Joseph and Christ. And we've talked about this before about symbolism in the Old Testament, types of. David is also a type of Christ. Joseph is a type of Christ. And there's a chart that is out that's pretty interesting. It's got the verses in the scriptures, and you can go back and look them up yourself. And it is a similarity between Joseph and also Christ, how they are identical. And it's one of these that are identical that Israel, Jacob loved Joseph. And it tells us that when Jesus is being baptized by John the Baptist, God speaks out of heaven. He says, "This is Christ, my son, whom I what? Love." So we see that's one of the characteristics there. But I'll print that out for you guys next week. Israel loved Joseph more than all of his other children. And we can take the side of the children, but we can also take the side of Jacob, because we've already seen what these boys are capable of in chapter 34. So, but we can take the side of his brothers too. He loves him more than his other children, and another reason he loves them more than his other children is because of who Joseph's mother was, and his mother was Rachel, and he loved Rachel. And that, if you're not familiar with that story, go back and read it. It's a great story. Because he is the son of his old age, and he made him a coat of many colors. And we talked about this last time with the coat of many colors, what it represented, what it was symbolic of. It was a tunic, I guess you could say, and it was extremely bright. These people are shepherds. There was nothing bright or extravagant in their lives, but they lived in the desert. Everything was brown, everything was drab. So Joseph, with his coat of many colors, really stuck out. And what it was it was just something you put over, and you had to understand there was nowhere to get colors at this time. You couldn't run down to Wilson's Fabric. You couldn't run to Walmart to get different types of thread. So this coat that he made him would be extremely expensive, and it would be extremely difficult to make, and it would be extremely difficult to get all the colors for this. But he is making this coat for Joseph, and it is saying, not only in words, but also in vision, that I like this kid and I love this kid more than I do the rest of y'all. Okay? Now, the oldest brother at this time is going to be a guy by the name of Reuben. He's the oldest of all of them. Reuben, according to Old Testament law and tradition, should have been the patriarch of that family under his father. But Joseph is now being made patriarch of that family under his father just by the actions of this coat that he made him. So he makes him this coat of many colors, and you can also say that Israel or Jacob is actually putting a target on his son's back. And when his brethren saw that their father, now keep this in mind, it says Israel loved Joseph, and he made him. How is Israel or Jacob showing his sons and the world that he loves Joseph? Is it with words? How is it? It's going to be with action, how he does things for him. He makes him a coat. And it says, and when their brothers saw, they see, they don't hear. All they have to do is just observe. And when their brethren saw that their father loved him more than all his other brethren, guess what that stirs up? Hatred. This is another aspect or another similarity with Joseph and Christ. Was Christ, when he was here on this earth by his brethren, so to speak, was he loved or hated? He is hated. He tells his disciples, the world's going to hate you because of me. You're going to have a tribulation in this world because of me. But be of good cheer, because I have overcome what? The world. So what Joseph is experiencing now, just like what Christ experiences, is he is experiencing tribulation, not from the outside world, but he is experiencing tribulation and hatred from within. So it says, and they hated him, and they could not speak peaceably unto him. Starting in verse 5, everything starts ramping up really quick. There are two people in the Old Testament that are prominent in dreams. They're prominent in interpreting dreams, interpreting their own dreams, or interpreting someone else's dream. And in the Old Testament, in this culture, dreams was extremely significant. They put stock into dreams. And who is the other individual in the Old Testament that was great at interpreting dreams? Daniel. So you have these two people, and Daniel is one of these individuals, and Joseph probably was one of these individuals. You didn't even have to tell him you dreamed. He could just tell you what you dreamed. So Joseph is going to be this person that could interpret dreams and have these special dreams. And again, this is something extremely specific. Us, we wake up from a dream, we don't even remember what we dreamed. But with Joseph, he's going to dream a dream. Now, all of these dreams that he's going to have two specific dreams. These dreams that he's going to have are going to be dreams that are prophetic, i.e. futuristic. Meaning these are things that are actually going to happen. Now, was he obligated to tell his brothers this dream? Joseph knows what these dreams mean. He's not dumb. So Joseph could have kept his mouth closed and not told his brothers about these dreams, but if he would not have told his brothers about these dreams, then they would, if he'd have kept his mouth closed, the hatred would just been probably at a 5. But by him telling his brothers these dreams, their hatred is at a 10, and this is the main reason they're going to kill him. And we go back to what I've said before. You take one verse. Let's do this. Starting in chapter 37, let's remove verse 3. There's no verse 3. Okay? We go, Jacob dwelt in the land of his father's strange land of Canaan. The generations, 17 years old. He's with the sons of Beli, father's wife. Tells of his evil report. Let's take out verse 3. There's no verse 3. Okay? We get to verse 4. It makes no sense. Verse 4, 5, 6, 7, the rest of it falls apart if not for verse 3. And that's why it's important that every word, every verse, every sentence, every chapter, especially in the book of Genesis, all throughout the Bible, but essentially in the book of Genesis, you remove it, the rest of it falls apart. Everything falls apart. So if you remove verse 3, we take out Israel showing favoritism to Joseph. We take out the coat of many colors. So you take out two very important aspects of this story. In this story, in verse 3, the rest of Joseph's life hinges on that one verse. That one verse, everything in his life hinges on. So let's just remove that. You don't have anything else in the book of Genesis, because everything starts with the love of Joseph and this coat of many colors. And if we take out verse 3, then we look at verse 4 and go, why do they hate him? And what's these dreams? It's all, everything has to connect. Everything has to connect. And Joseph dreamed a dream, and he told his brethren, and they hated him yet the more. Okay, so now, in verse 4, they hate him. In verse 5, they hate him. You get to verse 8, they hate him. I get the sense he's not well liked by his brothers. I get the sense for his birthday, he didn't get no presents. He didn't get anything under the Christmas tree. They couldn't stand the kid, just to be honest. And Everybody knows people, and you probably got family members like, he's just one of these kids that just more than likely got under their skin. And the reason is, he's not like them. He's completely opposite of them. But go back to chapter 34. That's who he's dealing with. These are the type of people, you would think that Jacob would keep Joseph as far away from his stepbrothers as he could. Don't go around them. Don't go near them. Let's take that side of the coin. Let's say that Jacob protects Joseph, doesn't let him leave the house, doesn't let him go off with Dan and Naphtali and Gad and Asher. Can't go off with them. He does not let them go off with him. Then they can't get their hands on him and sell him into slavery. You have no Potiphar. You have no prison. You have no baker. You have no interpreter of dreams. You have no Pharaoh. You have the famine. You have the 7 years good, the 7 years bad. You see how everything has to essentially fit together like a puzzle? So if Jacob protects him from all of this, we don't have any of this. If Jacob is protecting Joseph from his brothers, and he's not allowed to go around his brothers, and then he has this dream, and Jacob's the only person that hears about this dream, then you don't have the hatred. You don't have that. You don't have any of that. So everything has to line up. So Joseph, I'm about to quit. Joseph dreamed a dream. He told his brothers, and they hated him yet the more. And he said unto them, we're going to read this, and then we're going to stop. He said unto them, hear, I pray you, this dream which I have dreamed. This is how I could imagine. He's standing there at this coat of many colors. They're all out there in the field. Here comes Joseph. And he says, hey, guys, y'all come around here. I'm going to tell you something. And they're probably under their breath thinking, this little brat, what does he want? Just what do you want? And he gathers them all around. And he's probably like, hear ye. Listen to this dream I've had. And the dream is essentially this. One of these days, you guys are going to be my servants. One of these days, you're going to have to come to me, bow on your knees, and beg for food. Dear Heavenly Father, we love you and we thank you. Dear God, as we go through this life of Joseph,